Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Dylan Thomas, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 draft winners from the 2020 NBA draft. It was a really exciting draft. It's super fun. I think I have a surprise pick at number 1, so hopefully you stay tuned to hear all these picks. Before we get started with the top 5, though, I want to give an honorable mention to the Detroit Pistons. I'm going to quickly go through all their picks, and they also made a trade, which is really interesting to me. So, Killian Hayes, pick number 7. I thought he was great value. He has a super well-balanced game. The athleticism might be a little questionable to get by defenders at the NBA level, and his three-point shot, it needs to go up, but the form looks good. The free throw percentage looks pretty decent as well, so I think he's going to be really good. I think getting a guard is going to be really good for that team too, because Derrick Rose is pretty old. They'll probably end up trading him at some point, or he'll walk in free agency, so I think they really need that point guard to restart this rebuild. Isaiah Stewart at pick 16. I didn't like this pick as much. He plays sort of like Montrezl Harrell. I don't think he's as good offensively, but I hope he can bring you more on the defensive end of the ball. It was definitely a reach, though. I feel like you could have gotten him in the late first, and you obviously took on the Trevor Ariza contract for this, so it limits cap space for players coming into this free agency class, but it's kind of a weak free agency class, so I get why you do it for the extra pick. You also traded Luke Kennard for the 19th pick, which you took Saddiq Bey. I really like Luke Kennard as a player. You're definitely downgrading from a player perspective, but if you want to save cap space, I think this is a really good move because obviously you don't have to pay Kennard. His free agency was coming up, albeit restricted free agency, so you can match. So if you're not going to pay Kennard, you might as well trade him. And pick 19 is pretty okay value for him. The only reason why I'd argue I don't like this move is because I guess you're taking on the Ariza contract and then you're selling Kennard. So it's kind of like, what are you doing here? But I think this is a move they're doing because they want to save cap space down the line, not just this weak free agency class coming up. Saddiq Bey's a nice 3-and-D player, shot very well from 3 at Villanova. He also has good rebounding for a small forward. I'd try to use him sort of as we see Robert Covington being used, which is funny because Isaiah Stewart pick was from the Rockets, which they traded for Robert Covington. World's crazy, right? Anyways, I think he could be a nice 3-and-D player. I don't think this is a player that's going to transform this franchise, but I think he could help contribute to winning basketball down the line for this team. You also got Saben Lee, a player I don't know much about, but I've heard he has a lot of speed and athleticism. He puts high effort on defense and Eric Bledsoe play style. I don't know much about him. I'm not going to talk much about him. So I didn't really like the Isaiah Stewart pick and the Luke Kennard trade. I get why, but it was a little iffy for me, so that's why they didn't make my top 5. For the 5th best draft, I'm going to give it up to the Wizards. I thought the Wizards got a great value in Deni Avdija out of Israel. I had him as a top 5 prospect, and I think the fit's really good. I think he can play alongside both John Wall and Bradley Beal. The spacing might be a little tight. Thomas Bryant can kind of shoot threes. Obviously, Davis Bertans there. If he stays, I don't know this at the time of recording that, I think Davis Bertans could really help space the floor for you. His percentages were pretty low, but he's really athletic. He's 6'9" with a 6'9" wingspan too. He sort of plays like Utah Gordon Hayward. He can play make, solid ball handler, two-way player, right? And if his shot improves, sort of like we saw from Utah Gordon Hayward, could be a really good player for this team. And I like the pick a lot because the Wizards are kind of in purgatory, if you will. John Wall's coming back. We don't even know if he's going to be healthy or good, to be honest. We hope he is because he was the man, and then obviously Bradley Beal took off and he's kind of become the man there in Washington. So I really like the high upside pick because if you want Bradley Beal to stay, I think you're going to need another guy next to both those guys. And like I said, John Wall's a big question mark for this team. So even if he comes back healthy, why aren't they just a first round playoff bounce from a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, Toronto Raptors, Miami Heat? But if John Wall is healthy and Deni pans out, this can make Bradley Beal stay, and that's really big because they do not want to trade Bradley Beal, and Bradley Beal doesn't seem like he wants to leave unless they continue to not win games. So I also like the Cassius Winston pick. I think it's going to be really good for this team if Ish Smith leaves. Ish Smith is a really underrated free agent in this class, in my opinion. Cassius Winston, though, really good at everything, older prospect. In fact, you can get him at pick 53, really good for this team. Should be good off the bench. Maybe he needs a little polish to his game. I had him going in the early second, so I like the pick. Nothing too sexy, nothing too incredible from the Wizards, just staying where they're at, grabbing their guys. I like it a lot. As for my 4th highest draft winner, I'd say, Tyrese Halliburton went to the Kings at 12, and that sort of almost sealed it for me. And I like their picks later down the line, but this is kind of the main one I liked. Tyrese, I think, was a top 6 prospect going into the draft. I like the fit. I do wonder if Buddy Hield gets moved, or what's happening with Bogdan Bogdanovic, because the sign and trade with Milwaukee fell flat, which is sort of bad for this team because they could have gotten Dante DiVincenzo back, and I don't think they're going to keep Bogdan. Honestly, both those guys could get moved too. And I bring that up because you kind of have a whole bunch of guards. I think Bogdan can solidly play the small forward too. I think you could run 3 guards, sort of like you did in OKC with Billy Donovan. So I don't think it's the worst fit. But Tyrese, I really like him next to De'Aaron Fox. He kind of plays like Lonzo Ball is playing right now in the NBA without all the expectations, sort of, which I think is still a pretty good player. Shot form's wonky, and the percentages in college were incredible, but they're going to go down. That shot looks so wacky. I don't expect that to sustain throughout NBA three-point shooting, especially when the line's a little farther out. Tyrese, like I said, great playmaker, can handle the ball, brings great size and defense. He's 6'11" wingspan for a 6'5" shooting guard. He's a really, really hard player. And I think he can be switched onto some forwards like we see with a guy like Malcolm Brogdon or Kyle Lowry. I think the Kings really needed to take the best player available here, and they got to steal with their pick. I think they did exactly that. The Kings have been heavily criticized for not making the playoffs in what seems like an eternity, and I think going BPA and trying to get another star to pair alongside De'Aaron Fox is going to be really good, especially because Marvin Bagley can't stay healthy, and he's looked okay, but you did pass on him for Luka, which is something that might haunt this franchise for decades to come. Robert Woodard III was picked at pick 40. Woodard's a pretty cool prospect in my opinion, just because he reminds me of one of my most underappreciated role players in the league, Dorian Finney-Smith of the Mavericks. They can't create their own offense, right? But they bring high energy, strength, intensity to the court. They're both good from 3 and pretty solid from the mid-range too. Brings a lot defensively, very switchable. Like I said, great 3-and-D role player in the second round. I think the Kings need help on defense and they need some spacing, especially if you're going to move Buddy Hield or Bogdan or both. So I like that pick a lot. He can definitely fit in behind the Harrison Barnes. Jahmi'us Ramsey, also another pick at pick 43. Only 19 years old, but he's a very good shooter out of Texas Tech. Plays sort of similar to Aaron Naismith that the Celtics drafted at 14. So take that as you want, but Ramsey's a lot less polished and not as good, but he's a little smaller. I think he's better defensively one-on-one, but not as much of a team defender. I think the thing with Ramsey is he brings one valuable thing, and that's three-point shooting, and he struggles to create on his own. But at 43, you're okay with that. Like I said, this team needs spacing, and I think the handle actually has room to improve into something decent. So the Kings, good job. This is a really good step in the right direction. Tyrese Halliburton, I don't think he's going to change the franchise, but I think he could really help you potentially make a playoff push if Marvin Bagley can stay healthy. Maybe De'Aaron Fox takes another step. It'll be exciting to see. For my third best draft winner, I'm going to go with the Mavericks. Josh Green. Favorite show is Money Heist, so I'm a little biased here because I love that show, but he's a 3-and-D player from Australia. I really love 3-and-D players, and at 18, it's exactly what you need from the Mavericks. The spacing's going to help Luka because his three-point shot, pretty inconsistent. He's taking a lot of hard shots. I think the percentage of 31-ish, it's definitely higher than that. He's definitely a better shooter than what that percentage says, but could he sort of be like Westbrook and maybe he's just chucking threes, he's not as good as it? I don't think so, but it could be possible, right? I think it's too early to tell in that department. I just think taking a wing, someone who can also flex in at the shooting guard position, and Josh Green's really, really good for this team. Like I said, their defense was very, very troublesome, and reason why they potentially got bounced by the Clippers in the first round. I think their offense was great. It's very Luka dominant. I think Josh Green can play off ball, shoot some threes, play some great defense. Should play behind Dorian Finney-Smith, who I've mentioned earlier in today's episode. Something really interesting to see. I really like the pick, but the pick I like more is Tyrell Terry at pick 31. He plays like Trae Young, but he's obviously not Trae Young. I don't want you to take that away, but he's a little bit bigger than him too, actually. He's 6'3", I heard, around 170, 180 potentially, even at his highest weight. So I think this could be a starter for this team one day, honestly. I really like Terry. I thought he should have gone at end of the lottery even. I would have been okay with that. Luka played a lot of point guard this year in Dallas, but I think if Terry develops properly, Luka will be a shooting guard for this team because you're going to want to plug and play Terry at that point guard position. Man, the defense might not be the best of this backcourt, but the offense could be like unguardable. Terry's incredible from the three-point line. He's only 20 years old too, and his playmaking is really good next to Luka. You can see both these guys dishing out to each other, to players like Josh Green, Dory Finney-Smith, right? These players open. Kristaps in the post open. Kristaps from three, right? Oh, it's going to be so much fun to see if this pick pans out. And I think the one thing that could hold back Terry, though, is Luka Doncic is used pretty much like James Harden. Doncic isn't really good off the ball, too. So I don't know if that's going to win you a championship. Luka's obviously young and has room to grow, but we'll have to see how they use Terry, and hopefully they kind of take some of that pressure off Doncic by using guys like Terry or Jalen Brunson. Tyler Bey at pick 36. Just a decent role player as a defender. Nothing special offensively. Fair value should help their defense. I don't feel like talking about Tyler Bey too much, but I think he could be a solid role player for this team. This one might be the longest, and my second draft winner is the 76ers. Not first. Might surprise some people. They were busy. Really, really, really busy. And I want to give it up for Daryl Morey. He was so criticized with the Rockets. Keep in mind, if Chris Paul doesn't get injured, they could have beat the super team Warriors. And obviously the Raptors did that, but it wasn't the same. KD was injured, Clay was injured. Not the same as what the Rockets almost did. And I really appreciate Morey. And I think we saw with all these moves, all the values he got, that Daryl Morey could be one of the best executives in the game. Obviously Danny Ainge is up there. A whole bunch of people like Pat Riley maybe, but Daryl Morey, people hate him too much. Anyways, let's get into the draft. One of my favorite players in this draft class was Tyrese Maxey. I really wanted my Celtics to take him. He's an interesting player because I feel like he brings a mix of Drew Holiday and Tyler Hero. I don't think he has the playmaking of Holiday, though, I'll say that. But those are two really different players, so I think he brings a really unique style to the game. I think his offense is probably more like Hero, and his defensive upside is sort of like Holiday, to be honest with you. And Kentucky always has good NBA players. One of my favorite colleges to watch because I know these guys are going to potentially be good one day in the NBA. Anthony Davis, Karl-Anthony Towns, Jamal Murray, right? All these guys have been really, really good. I'm not giving them that much pressure because those guys were incredible prospects coming out. All top 6 picks or higher. But I think Maxey could be a steal too, sort of like Tyler Hero, who we saw. He can handle the ball. He's fearless too. He makes some super, super tough shots, and he plays high effort on defense. He struggles as a playmaker, but Ben Simmons has the playmaking cover. Don't worry about that. I think his secondary ball handler ability is going to be really good for this team, and that was something they were missing versus the Celtics. Obviously, Ben wasn't playing in that series either, but I think they would have eventually lost because they missed that secondary ball handler. His percentages in college were iffy, though, and I think they're going to go up because his form and free throw percentage indicate otherwise. Very jealous of the 76ers. I think this is a perfect fit. It's the best player available. I think it could be a steal, so I'm very, very excited for this. It's a great, great pick. So who else do we got for the 76ers? Isaiah Joe at pick 49. I think he's a lights-out shooter from Arkansas. High-effort defense. A little bit of playmaking. Help with the spacing a ton. I wonder what's going to happen with him. Shake Milton, obviously, might take his minutes, but I think he could be a steal in the second round. 76ers gave him a draft promise before he was selected, it was rumored, so I think they're going to really, really like him. And I think they're ecstatic they got him at pick 49. Paul Reed, pick 58, high-energy player. I don't think he's going to be much. He's a versatile defender at the point. Power forward spot. I think that's going to be kind of it he gives you, though. They also did 2 trades I'll quickly cover here. And I'm going to cover this first trade from both sides. So, Josh Richardson and Tyler Bey were sent for Seth Curry. And I think it's a win for both sides. I obviously didn't talk about the Mavericks, so I'm just going to talk about it here. I think Seth Curry's spacing is going to be really, really good for the 76ers. I think it could take him to another level as a 3-point shooter. And I think the Mavericks needed Josh Richardson and Tyler Bey's defense. It's a trade that helps on both sides. So that's that. And then obviously they traded Al Horford and a lightly protected 2025 first for Danny Green. The pick's sort of interesting if the 76ers blow up, obviously. Do is that pick good potentially if they trade Ben? Who knows? But I think it's a win for both sides. Horford, obviously, I still think he's okay, but he's pretty overpaid as well. Danny Green, rough playoff series, definitely, throughout with the Lakers, but I still think he's a kind of the player you want on this team. You know, can shoot the three ball, team defender, great. The pick's obviously great for OKC. I think now they're going to have salary cap for a full mid-level exception though here for the 76ers. And I think that they should actually target a backup big, which sounds weird because he just shipped off Horford. But they're plus minus, you know, all the things whenever Embiid's off the court for the 76ers is actually really, really bad. So maybe a Tristan Thompson you can get for $9 million or some type of backup big. Maybe Aaron Baines, if you really want to push the chips in, could be another great guy. It'll be interesting to see. And now my favorite draft for a team that only came with a 1 second round pick. I believe it was pick 46. And they came out with 3 guys I had as first round guys. And this is the main reason I have them over the 76ers. I expected the 76ers to make a lot of moves, and they did. And Grizzlies had 1 second round pick, and they made it work. Like, they made it work so well. And I'm impressed. So the first pick was Desmond Bane at pick 3. And one of my favorite prospects, right? Honestly, I think he's really good from 3. An older prospect, brings great defense, secondary playmaking too. I think he could end up playing a lot like Malcolm Brogdon when he was with Milwaukee. And that's going to be perfect alongside Ja Morant. Dillon Brooks kind of had a worrisome bubble. I'm not going to take too much stock into it though. And they just paid him. But I think he could be a good player to plug and play if Dillon Brooks is having a bad night. I love the pick so much. He's probably one of my guys. And speaking of one of my guys, another one they took, Xavier Tillman, pick 35. Tillman, I think, brings that skill set that's very valuable in today's NBA, right? His passing out of the post is incredible. Really good at setting screens. Really good roll man. Great defender in the post. He is 6'8", so he's a little undersized, but he's 240 plus, 245, I believe, so he has enough weight to defend himself in the post. What separates him most, though, is that I think he can be switched on to guard some, and we saw that being really useful with both the teams that made the finals this year, both Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis. Both of them are super switchable centers, and I think that was really, really beneficial in why they were in the finals. So I think Xavier Tillman could follow suit of that. Obviously, they have Jonas Valanciunas, so he's obviously not going to start for this team. He's only a second-round pick, right? But I think his defense, his IQ, could make him the perfect backup. And I actually really like Gorgui Dieng a lot, but he's on a pretty hefty contract. He'll probably be gone in a year or two. So Xavier Tillman, it's a great pick. And obviously that Michigan State Triple J, Xavier Tillman, oh man, that's so fun to watch. And I normally don't count undrafted guys, but this guy had to be. Killian Tilly out of Gonzaga. Grizzlies didn't draft him. He's such a steal, though, as an undrafted free agent. The thing that made him go undrafted was just his injury troubles. But he brings another great skill set as a big. He's sort of like Xavier Tillman in some ways, but also very different. And if he was healthy, I think we could have seen him go in the lottery. And they got him for free. Oh, minus the money you're paying him, of course. But what can Tilly bring to the Grizzlies? Pass the ball, switch onto some guards as well, right? That's one of the things he brings. He sort of struggles in the post, not the best post defender, but he's a really, really good weak side rim protector. And the most valuable thing is he brings spacing for the floor as a center. He can shoot the 3-ball really, really well. And I think that and his high effort motor is really going to be a steal for the Grizzlies if they decide to keep him. The front court's really stacked with this team, though. Obviously, you have Triple J, Jonas Valanciunas, Xavier Tillman now, Gorgui Dieng. And, of course, you're also going to have Brandon Clark, who is one of my favorite guys last year. Great to see him ball out. But I think Tilly's a smart move. Just take the best player available. You're not spending a draft pick, right? And, maybe you sell Gorgui Dieng, or, maybe you can sign Killian Tilly to a two-way. I don't know what you can do, but it's going to be really exciting to see. And that's the reason why they're my number one. They had not much going in. And obviously they sold some seconds and yada, yada, yada. But they got 3 guys I thought could go in the first. So thank you very much for listening to my 5 best drafts from the 2020 NBA draft. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Let me know what you think about the draft in the comments below. And hopefully you'll see more of me in the future. Let me know what type of content you want. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.